Welcome again to deLight. And today we're just going to wrap up our series on communication, and we're going to dive a bit deeper into the conflict management part of communication. So for us to be able to understand conflict, we just need to just give one step backwards and just define what effective communication really is. So it says effective communication is when all parties involved assign the same meaning to the message. They listen carefully to what has been said, and they make the sender feel heard and understood. So that is what effective communication looks like. And if you have a desire to effectively handle conflict in a way that it's constructive, it's a good starting point to take some time to really prep for effective communication. So the first thing that we can do is to start with our hearts. Our hearts are the control center of our mind and our body. And it says in Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for out of it springs forth the issues of life. So before we enter into a communication, ask yourself, what do you want as the outcome? What do you want to achieve with this communication? Do you want the conflict or the situation to be resolved and to bring forth reconciliation? Or is your aim, you just want the other person to realize they are bad, they are wrong, they harmed you, they need to say sorry? What is your motive and your intention with going into this conflict situation or this communication situation? I think a second thing that is important is to realize that we often have so much pride, and that this can be something that keeps us back from keeping the conflict to be constructive. Self-centeredness can manifest in two ways. I always only saw self-centeredness as something that you can see when someone is full of pride. It's what you pick up, that there's actually a degree of self-centeredness. But in terms of someone that has low self-esteem, they often also make everything about themselves. I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, you don't know what I've been through, or I'm not up for this, I don't really, everything is I. So overconfidence and pride and low self-esteem and no confidence, both of them manifest in different, on opposite ways, but the root of both those opposites is self-centeredness. The word says, only by pride comes contention, and that is in Psalms 13 verse 10. And that contention, it causes strife, and it causes conflict, and it causes harm and hurt. So we need to go and check, are we at a place where we are ready to go with the right intention into this conflict situation to really bring reconciliation and peace and to mend fences and build relationships? Or are we there to just bring across our point and to make the other person hear and see our point, our, mine, my? And again, it goes back to self-centeredness. So why should we sort things out, even though it might turn out into a conflict situation? Why should we as children of God not avoid all conflict at all costs? So I want to take you to Matthew 5 verse 9, which says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. And for a long time, the picture in my head, if I hear the word peacemaker, was actually peacekeeper. That's what I thought. A person who keeps the peace, who kind of avoids all the conflict situations, just keeps everyone happy, always steps back, be the least. You know, if something is troubling you, you need to deal with it yourself and get over it, you and God. You never talk to the person because you need to keep the peace. But that passage says, blessed are the peacemakers. And to make peace requires to bring something to the table and to talk it out. So we as Christians often tend to avoid things and be angry by ourselves about things, especially if it's in our families or in our friends or in our congregations. we tend to avoid sorting things out for the sake of keeping the peace. But in the end, it just destroys relationships because it prevents true reconciliation and true forgiveness from taking place. So if you want to really resolve things, here is a practical step-by-step process that we're just quickly going to take a look at to help you how to tackle this situation. If you know there's something that needs some sorting out, it's not sorting out by itself, and you want to resolve it. So if you are able to let the thing go, and now in 5 years' time from now, this thing won't bother you, and you know in general it's not supposed to, but you are willing to say that in 5 years' time from now, it won't mean anything to your life, and you are willing to let it go, and you really do, then you can leave it. You don't need to talk about it. You deal with it yourself, you go on. But if it's something that you know in 5 years' time from now, this same thing will still bug me and I will still feel the same and it will still be a problem, then you need to talk it out. Talk, communicate, sit around the table. It says in the word, if you have a problem with your brother, go to your brother and speak to him, talk to him, not talk to the pastor or talk to the neighbor or talk to anyone else. Go to the person and speak to the person. And if you are not able to resolve it, then you bring in the elders of the church. And only then, if it's not able to be resolved, the situation, you can dust the dust from your feet and you can walk away and know you did what was expected from you in terms of being a child of God. So if there's a situation that you know needs some resolving, and it might turn out to be something that you cannot avoid the conflict, that's okay. It's good to sort things out, to solve things. And here are some steps that you can take to face this conflict situation. So the first thing is you must take responsibility and initiate the communication. It cannot be via email, via telephone, via WhatsApp. It needs to be face-to-face, because in a message or in a letter, in an email, the intentions, those non-verbal communication cues, which actually gives the emotion that helps to bring about or bring over or communicate the emotions behind what you are saying, is absent. So they can read in their own communication and their own emotions through what you are saying. And like we said in the first session on this, on communication and how to really handle it and to understand why we are reacting in a certain way. Like if your picture, your filter through which you hear things is so clogged with all these things that have not been sorted out, it will not allow the person to really hear what you're saying, to hear your heart, because they will make their own assumptions. So that's why it's important to initiate a face-to-face communication. I said a bit earlier, as long as you keep something in the dark, it has power. But if you bring it into the light, it loses its power. And that's why it's important that you take it and you put it on the table, because then it can be resolved and sorted out, and light and truth can be shared onto that situation. It stops us from having these voices in our head where we have so many assumptions of what this person is saying and why and what their intentions are. And like if we don't talk and we don't bring it into the light and you hear that from the person, you just make up your own. And the enemy has a field day with us. He adds things, we add things, and we're just building a case where we just adding to the list of the things which we are holding against this person. And that implies unforgiveness. So it stops us from assuming things which are not the truth. It also creates space for peacemaking, where we can really bring things to the table and we can hear one another's hearts. Timing is a very important thing when it comes to when do we want to allocate the time or to do this face-to-face communication. So it needs to be when both people are able to communicate and have time to hear each other. It can't be when you only have 5 minutes or things are in a rush or in the middle of a busy day. You need to really pick a time where both of you are calm and where when you can be objective and have the time to really sort this thing out. So this timing also involves that you choose to do it at a time when you can be calm and in control of your emotions and can verbalize and also bring across the intention of your heart in a way that that person will be able to hear it, but also at a time when that person will be able to actually receive whatever you are saying. So it must be a good time for both of you to enter into this face-to-face communication. Number 2, tell the truth in love. Tell the truth in love. Okay, if we read Ephesians 4, verse 15, it says, rather speaking the truth in love, we ought to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ. And if we look at 1 Corinthians 13, which is just the picture of what love entails, that needs to drench the way we tell the truth. So is it in a way that it does not boast, it is kind, it covers that person, it does not hold account or record of wrongs? Is that transcended in the way that you tell the truth? Is it in love? I think a way where that truth can be communicated in love, a beautiful way to bring that across, is to allow yourself to be vulnerable and to open up to that person, to lower your guard a bit and to speak the truth and to communicate, what it is that happened and why it made you feel like that. Also, it will entail a building up, because if we read 1 Corinthians 13, it will be a love that builds up, that will not break that person down. So the way in which you communicate and convey your message, it's good if you include an amount of vulnerability, but that you make sure that it is a building up, an edifying way in which you are bringing across this truth which you are sharing. I think an awesome practical way in which you can help your heart when you tell the truth to come across in love is to start the discussion and the sharing of your truth that you are sharing, but with the back of your mind, presuming the innocence of the person with which you are speaking. So especially if it's your loved one, if it's a spouse or your child, it's important to remind yourself you love this person and this person loves you and chose you. So give them the benefit of the doubt. And when you enter into sharing this truth that you are feeling, start with presuming their innocence and just explaining how you felt and what happened, not accusing them, but communicate from a place of presuming that they were really not aware of what they did. The third tool that you can do then is to listen, and listen with empathy. And that means to listen with understanding. So it says in the word, be slow to speak and quick to listen in Proverbs 18:2. My dad always says you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, because you need to be twice as quick to listen and you need to be slow to speak, as this passage in Proverbs says. So this will involve an empathetic listening and understanding will involve of you to talk less and to listen more. So don't focus on your own opinion and trying to bring your opinion across, but focus to understand what the other person is saying when they respond. Okay, so I want to read Proverbs 18 verse 2. It says, a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion. So the word calls you a fool if you only have the goal or the intention of bringing your own point across, and you don't have any intention of really understanding what the person is trying to say. So listening with empathy will also involve that you listen to understand the person's beliefs and their values and their feelings and their cultural background differences, their personality. You make space for those things while that person is communicating back to you. So if it's not in accordance with what you believe or your upbringing or everything, you're not disregarding it, but you are choosing to understand that this person has a different view than myself, has a different upbringing, and therefore will have a different perspective on the situation. It also includes not only accepting what the person is saying, but why they are saying this, why they are feeling the way they do. Okay, so the goal is not to agree when we go into a conflict situation. I think that is often what we aim to do, and that's why we walk away so disappointed. The aim of communication and a constructive conflict situation is to gain understanding. Okay, so that's very important. And again, if it comes to listening, there's a way that they speak about this active listening process. So I'm just quickly going to give you the points on the active listening process, and then we're going to go back to the steps we can follow to have constructive conflict management. So for active listening to take place, it means you need to be able to hear the content without any disruptions. You need to be present. So if I listen to my spouse trying to talk to me about something that's serious, and I am still browsing my phone and on Facebook and checking my emails, it means that I'm not really present, and I am communicating that it's not really important to me what the other person is saying, and it can cause disruptions quite easily. So if it is something serious that you need to talk out, for example, parents, then you need to maybe tell your kids, for the next 20 minutes, please, we don't need to be disturbed. Just try to, put on a movie or keep them busy, or call someone to look after them, or go drop them at your parents, so that you can communicate without having any disruptions, so that you can really hear what the other person is saying. Okay, active listening, really hearing the content. Listen for the feelings of the person. Observe their body language. Check your own body language. So observe, listen for the feelings. Try to see if you can read those nonverbal communication cues. Paraphrase and say, okay, am I hearing you correctly? So when I do this, it makes you feel that you are not important to me, and so paraphrase to check, am I hearing correctly what you are saying? Because if we look at this slide again on perspective, we touched on this in the first session, but two people can look at the same image and see two different pictures. And it's not to say that one person is right and one person is wrong. Sometimes both people can be right. Sometimes both people can be wrong. So it's important to paraphrase, to make sure you are really hearing what the person is saying, and that you're not hearing what you want to hear. Also, it's important then to become self-aware of what it is that you are feeling, becoming aware now that this is the way you are making this person feel when you do this, and to reflect on, yes, is this really what I'm doing? Go and check in your mind, check in your heart, and ask the Holy Spirit to really show you, is this something that you are doing often, and is it something maybe where you need to grow and to bring change in? And if you don't really understand correctly what the person is saying, ask open-ended questions. So don't ask a question where, okay, are you sure? Are you feeling better now? And they can just answer yes. Don't ask a yes or no question. Ask, when I am doing these things, what do you feel can I do different to make you feel heard or to make you feel loved? So ask an open-ended question where the person can feel that you really seek to understand. Okay. So those are just tips on active listening. Okay, so going back to steps that we can follow to handle a conflict situation. The fourth step, which is very important, is to strive for peace. Okay, so peace does not mean to withhold the truth. It's rather needed to mend and to rebuild. We need to face it, to sort it out, to bring peace, but all of this in love. Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. And Hebrews 12:14, pursue peace with all people. So God wants us to live in peace and to strive for peace. But to bring peace, we need to face things and bring it to the table. Think before you speak. So don't speak rashly. Consider the consequences of your words. Choose them wisely. Often we speak, especially with our spouses, as if we don't need to consider what we are saying. That no matter how bad we say something or how destructive it is, like they will always be okay and will be able to bounce back. And there was a time when I was in Sierra Leone with Sydney. We were working there, and the conditions were quite tough in terms of the workload and being in a different environment. Again, the change factor was so big. There were many different new things that we had to balance and work out at once. And so me and Sydney, I was difficult during that time. And there was a time when I was really rude to Sydney, and I said like stuff that I regretted so badly. And while walking away, I was still angry in that moment. The Lord asked me, if Sydney is the person that you love the most in the world, why do you treat him like this? And why do you treat him in a way as if no matter what you say, he will never leave you? Why do you treat him like that? And I just realized Sydney is such a blessing to me. I'm blessed with such an amazing husband, and he is the most precious person in my life. So why do I go there? And why do I allow myself to really lose all self-control and to just vomit all this ugliness out over him, thinking that it will never hurt him to an extent where it's irreversible? So consider your words before you speak, because they have consequences. The power of life and death is in our tongue, and we will eat the fruit of it. You eat the fruit of your own mouth. That which you speak is what you eat in the end. So you can choose, are you speaking life? Because you will eat life and you will speak life over others and it will bring life on them. Or are you speaking death, which you will eat yourself and you are causing death to those around you? It says in Proverbs 13 verse 3, careful words make for a careful life. Careless words may ruin everything. And in Proverbs 12 verse 18, it says, there is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. So we can choose what our tongue does. Is it a sword that kills, or is it something that brings healing to people? Also, we must remember that he who angers you controls you. So if someone angers you and you start speaking harshly and whatever, that person cannot control your behavior. You control your behavior. And if you allow yourself to be angry, to get angry and to lose self-control and to lose your temper, you allow that person to actually control you. Through the Spirit, you stop reacting in a worldly way, but you allow the Holy Spirit to renew your mind through the Word to act in a new way, to bring forth new fruit. So also choose words that will build. Our words are so very powerful. So if we read in Ephesians 4:22, it says, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear it. Does your words bring grace to people? Okay, think about that. Also, we will account for every careless word that we speak. We cannot just speak whatever we want to. So it says in Matthew 12:36, it says, I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word that they speak. So we will give an account. We cannot just speak carelessly. Okay, number 6 is be gentle and patient. Be gracious in your speech. So we ended off with the grace part in the previous verse. It says also in Ephesians 4, verse 1 to 2, I beseech you to walk worthy of the calling with which you were called, with all lowliness and gentleness, with long suffering, bearing with one another in love. And that involves being gracious towards others. We will be judged in the way we judge others. It's often something that for me, that is, I realize I often have a judgmental tendency, a critical bone in my body, and I don't want it there. And often when I'm harsh on someone or something, the Holy Spirit reminds me, like, to be gracious, because what do unto others as you would have them do to you. Would you have wanted someone else to give you the benefit of the doubt, or to just would you have wanted them to be aware that you were just having a tough day and that's why it was difficult for you to do X, Y, and Z or whatever? So be gentle, be patient, be gracious. And these are all, especially the patience part, it's fruit of the Spirit. It's allowing yourself to spend time in the Word, spend time in God's presence, and allowing the Holy Spirit, the Spirit that's living and kicking and breathing inside of you, to come forth, to be the stronger part that manifests through your life, more than your natural tendencies is the sinful nature. So if we read in Colossians 4, verse 6, it says, be gracious in your speech. The goal is to bring out the best in others in a conversation, not to put them down or to cut them out. So make sure gentle and peaceful, building up, edifying, not breaking down. It says in Proverbs 25:11, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And often the other person might be losing their temper, and it's difficult for them to keep objective and to come back to being at a place where they want to resolve this in a Christ-like manner. And by you not exploiting that and rather becoming aware of it, and in kindness and in love, giving a kind word to bring back the heart of what this thing is about, it can help that person to also come back to having a heart to really resolve it. So we can either pour petrol on the flames, or we can extinguish the fire with a kind word. So this will involve understanding of your own, but especially the other person's strengths and weaknesses, and to be sensitive for that. And if you know there are maybe a person inclined to speak things without really thinking about what they say, to then listen in between all of that to come to understanding of what that person's heart is. Not to be oversensitive and to make everything about you and to take all of those things, but to read between them, because you know that person tends to just say things and not really think about what they are saying. So don't make it personal and draw all those things onto you. Be gentle and be patient and be full of grace. So don't respond by speaking harshly and being argumentative or trying to talk over the person to bring your point across. It says in Proverbs 25:24, it is better to dwell in a corner of a housetop than to be in a house with a contentious wife. And that is someone that likes to argue. So consider that. And also in Proverbs 10 verse 19, it says, when words are many, transgressions is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. You're in a situation where you see other people speak, and their whole aim is not really to seek to listen. They only seek to bring across their point. And so it's difficult. It's difficult if we have these tendencies. So it's important how you say what you say. That how is it's really important. And let's say, for example, Sydney, when he comes home, after a day of work, and I am, let's say, in front of the computer, and I just say, "Hi, honey," and I continue with whatever I'm doing. I was friendly in saying hi, but my body language didn't really indicate to him that I'm happy that he's home and that he's a priority to me. So I know that when he comes home, just for 2 minutes, stop with what I'm doing and acknowledge that he's there, hear how his day was, stand up, give him a hug, show him that he's important to me, just not just by knowing it in my heart, but by communicating it through standing up, stopping what I'm doing, and making him feel important and valued. So we need to be considerate about the other person and their interests, not to be self-focused. So it says in Philippians 2 verse 4, let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interests of others. So these are all things that are important when it comes to tackling a conflict situation. I hope this helps you. We're just going to end off with just some general tips when it comes to communication and conflict, and then we're going to wrap it up. Criticism is often a way of indirectly asking for something. Okay, something to consider is how many arguments actually solve the problem, but a discussion can. If it won't matter in 5 years from now, rather let it go. But if you can't, then you know it is something that you need to talk about. If in 5 years' time from now, this thing is still going to bug you, you need to talk about it. It's important that you bring it up. When we have conflict, it's important to remember to fight the situation or the thing, not the person, because often we lose track of what we are fighting about, or when conflict comes to a place where it becomes destructive, it is when we start, because we're not being able to resolve this, we're not hearing each other, we're not understanding, and then we turn to each other and start breaking each other down. But you are this, and you are this, and you are, and we make it personal. And that is not constructive. Okay, so don't break the person down. Don't make it personal about yourself. Keep it to the topic. Keep the topic which is brought on the table and discuss that. Sometimes we need some time to just diffuse the situation and just to calm ourselves. So in the heat of the moment, it's difficult for me to restrain myself and act in a constructive manner. I need some time just to think through things, get my head and around what's going on. So for me, I find it very good to just go for a jog or go for a walk, get out of the situation until all the voices in your head has become silent. Remember that when we talk about something that is very important to us, we tend to get excited and overexcited, or some people might almost interpret it as a sense of aggression, but when we're excited about something or passionate, we tend to send a lot of non-verbal messages. So if someone gets a bit, just know that they're actually just passionate and excited about the specific thing. It's not good to make a permanent decision from an emotional feeling or place. If the communication in your marriage is not as you would like, just know that it won't change on its own. You're going to have to initiate communication sessions. So maybe do a date night once a week, or take 2 or 3 times a week where you allocate 30 minutes to just speak to one another without distractions, without the distraction of the children, of your phone, of the TV being on, where you can just listen, hear one another. But if you are the reserved partner and you don't always have stuff to talk about, if something interesting happens during the day, just jot it down. Then like when I get home, you can tell your wife this and this, so that they can also experience that you're putting effort into actually coming and sharing something. When we all dated, we did stuff. We went for strolls on the beach, and we went hiking and moving, and we did fun stuff. So do something fun. Remember what those things were. If you have certain passions, indulge your partner. If your partner has a passion, for example, for golf, just go and walk with him. And let's say your husband, and let him play golf, and you're just there with him. And to do something fun, which will allow you to initiate the opportunity where you can have a bit of communication. if your past pain is still affecting your future, your current situation, then now you need to speak about it. You need to share with your partner if it's something maybe that happened in the past that is making you act in a way which brings frustration to your partner, which makes no sense to them, they don't understand. You need to be vulnerable and share with them if it is something specific from your past that happened. And if your partner is aware of it, but it's still impacting your relationship in such a way where it's just so destructive, go and speak to someone at your church or to a friend, or spend some time. I want to say go see a counselor, but I actually want to tell you the Holy Spirit is the greatest counselor of all. And if you are really willing to make yourself vulnerable and spend time, even if you just sit with him and there's nothing in your head, that's also okay. After a while, you will hear and he will speak. He is the greatest counselor of all, and he knows exactly what you need to be able to work through the thing. And he is the ultimate healer, and he heals and restores in a way that you will not be able to even remember the pain. You will know this thing happened, but it will not be able to steal from your now anymore. So go to him and allow him to bring healing to you. If you keep the piece of rotten bread in a cupboard, it will just rot more, and it will mold and everything. It just goes from bad to worse. Even if it was a piece of meat and you put a piece of meat in a cupboard, just think it will go away. It will rot, and it will make everything all infested, and bugs and everything will be there, And it's the same if there's stuff in our lives which we have not allowed the Lord to heal. We shove it into the back places of our hearts and we think it will be okay, but it's not. It's just rotting, and it's just infecting every area of our life. We need the Lord to help us and to bring healing, and he can. He can. And lastly, when someone shares something, we often tend to want to beat what they're saying with something that's even worse or better. And this can often come across that we are not really listening. Or hearing the person. So sometimes we should just be sensitive to know, is it a time where we can share when someone really shares something with you? Is it a time to share your own story or a similar thing back? Or is it a time where you should actually just keep quiet and listen and give that person some space to share and to be heard and to be understood? Often we have good intentions because we want to show the person or indicate that we understand, we've been through something similar or even something worse, but that doesn't come across as caring. It comes across as this person is not really hearing what I'm saying. And I catch myself doing that so often. But now being aware that it's actually not making the person feel heard, I can try, I can try to refrain from sharing that I can relate. So I hope this blessed you guys. This is at the end, this was the last session of our communication and conflict topic. So I just trust that the Holy Spirit will come and that he will come and share with you what it is he wants to work on and where he wants to bring healing and where he wants you to maybe talk about things to really mend relationships, to bring reconciliation. That is the heart of the Father, and that is also his heart for us with one another. If you have any questions, please feel free to send us an email and or to share some of your testimonies. We would love to hear them. And thank you so much for taking the time to listen. So until next time, you must be blessed.